Good morning, everyone, and a very happy Friday. Thank you for joining us. We will get started in just a couple of minutes. We're going to allow people to join. So please come on in, welcome, grab a coffee. Today's all about energy leadership. So get caffeined up and we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Thank you. Okay, I think we're going to get started. So yes, very good morning to you all joining us, whether you're here in Miami or participating virtually from Mexico or from anywhere else around the world. A very warm welcome. My name's Christian Turner, and I'm part of the Together We Advance committee, along with my co-chair, my co-president, Kevin Hunting, who's going to be leading today's session.
Hello.
Hi, Kevin. We're really honored and excited to really have this session today. This is, such an important subject and topic that we're going to be discussing. We always try to bring you, as part of Together We Advance, some great content, forward-thinking, dynamic content, and today really is just that. Kevin has over 17 years experience of leadership across e-commerce, digital marketing, and CRM. And is very passionate about helping LGBTQ+ professionals and allies develop the clarity and courage to take the next big step in their careers in order to make the biggest impact possible in the world. As we said, Kevin is a core energy leadership coach, a life and leadership coach with a focus on connecting inner purpose and passion to goals and strategies that bring extraordinary and sustainable business results. So without any further ado, lots of energy in the room today, here virtually online. Great that it's a Friday. Over to you, Kevin.
Thank you, Chris. And just want to say thank you to the U.S.-Mexico Chamber of Commerce for creating the space for all of you, the participants who are here today. And so I'm going to move quickly through this slide. Hold on one sec. Christian did a great job of the intro. And so these are just some of the big brands that I've worked with, like GE, Gap Inc. And I am definitely a certified leadership coach. And I cannot be more excited to bring to you all of this great information. There's going to be some great tools that I'm going to be sharing with you. But more importantly, I really ask that you tune in, turn off your telephone for a moment. Don't, I'm sure your boss is pinging you or perhaps a fellow colleague. But the more you can pay attention and really just listen and kind of engage and take on this information that you're going to hear today, I think you're going to find that it could be transformational in itself, because we have about an hour together. So let's get started. Here's a quick agenda. I've got some ground rules, and these ground rules basically I'm going to explain. They're pretty simple and straightforward. We're going to start off by talking about potential. It's a hot topic, and I know as leaders in your businesses, wherever you may be and wherever you are participating from, I think now more than ever, understanding who you are and emotional intelligence is such a key component into moving forward in your career and advancing. So having a fundamental understanding of what your potential looks like and what is behind it. So, how do you sort of build and maximize your potential as an individual? I'm going to then explain what the connection is between our beliefs, because our beliefs are really the bedrock to our potential, and then what the relationship is between beliefs and energy. And then we're going to get into some of the nuts and bolts of what energy looks like in terms of showing up every day as a leader and what that means for you, as well as then what is energy leadership, which energy leadership is really a whole systematic process that is going to allow you to tap into the potential that you have. And it's, again, a much longer journey than the 50 minutes that we have together, but I'll lay the framework for it. And then lastly, and this is the most exciting piece for me, because this is where I'm saying this is your time. We are going to actually go through and do an exercise together where it's going to give you just a little bit of insight about who you are in certain areas of your individual leadership and leadership style. And you're going to be able to kind of do some self-reflection as well as participate with the broader group. So there's going to be some participation, which to me is the fun part. So and then a wrap up and Q&A. So let's go ahead and start with ground rules. Be open. I think it goes without saying. You might hear some topics today that if it makes you feel a little uncomfortable, I think I'm doing my job. But it's not meant to be uncomfortable. This is really just be open and challenge yourself and me as we go through these topics. More importantly, I'd love for you to challenge what you think you know. I think that in itself is a statement that when you think about leadership, being open and looking at all possibilities is one of the foundations to really big, strong leaders, is that they're able to see all sorts of possibilities because of their mindset, which we're going to get into. And then lastly, we're going to have some fun. This is Friday. I know you guys are exhausted. I'm sure you participated in I don't know how many Zooms throughout the week, but I promise I'm going to make this one fun. And it's going to actually be pretty dynamic because you guys are going to do a lot of the participating towards the very end. So lastly, when you see this comment icon in the upper left-hand corner of a slide, that is just an indication that I'd love to see some people share your thoughts in the chat. And I might ask at certain moments for some of you to step forward if you'd like to just share your thoughts and ideas as we go through that leadership wheel exercise towards the end. And so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start talking about this big question. How, as individual leaders in our lives, right, and leaders in our organizations, how can we maximize our potential? And I am making a bit of an assumption here, so I hope everyone here would agree that growing as a leader is something that is critical to you and that you really believe in personal growth and development when it comes to your own career in the leadership in terms of where you want to go in your career. If not, I would love to hear from you because I would find it hard to believe that you don't want to maximize your potential in your particular business. So the other big thing here is how much time, think about how much time in your current world, whether it's on a weekly or monthly basis, how much time do you actually spend just thinking about ways in which you can maximize your potential as a leader and how you can grow? Apart from the learning and development that maybe your organization is giving you, a lot of larger companies do have big budgets for training and development. But really, when you think about it, how often do you really sit down and do some self-reflection about what might be holding you back at the current moment and where it is that you want to go in terms of your individual potential? And then the last kind of big thing that I'd like to state here is that maximizing our potential is really an ongoing journey in life. It doesn't just stop today or tomorrow. It's really an ongoing evolution. And in essence, that is what life is. Life is every opportunity that we have in any given situation is a moment for us to learn and grow if we look at it that way. If we sometimes are just going through life in default mode, we may not pick up on things or may not notice certain things, but this is really the foundation for, again, growing and continuing to maximize our potential. And so this is where it all starts. And what it basically starts with, right, is understanding what's happening around and within us at every single moment. And this is why awareness is so important. And we're going to get more into what that is. And then I just wanted to end here with a quote because it kind of speaks to what I was just saying. But many of you may have heard this quote by Carl Jung that states, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And so what the information I'm going to be providing hopefully today gives us a foundation where sometimes we can start making some of these things become more conscious within us, which will hopefully not result in it just being fate. We can have more choice and more control of where it is we want to go. So quickly, with that, don't get scared. I know this looks like the latest theoretical model from MIT, and it's not. This is kind of a model that I've come up with based on my overall coaching experience and coach training. And really, part of what our success formula is directly related to what you're seeing on the slide. And when I say our success formula, that is our potential as leaders. Basically, any formula for success starts with understanding who we are by increasing our self-awareness and our overall consciousness. And it's directly linked to our personal belief system. And so that's really the key message here is what we believe has a direct impact on what we think and feel, and ultimately on whether we take action or we become inactive in whatever goal we may have for ourselves. And again, we're going to get into much more detail about beliefs because beliefs are really the bedrock to potential and us maximizing our potential. So this framework is really the foundation. And again, it's all about mindset and consciousness. And the other big thing here, right, is that each of us are so unique as individuals. And so our success formula is actually unique to each one of us. There is no cookie cutter success formula to maximize your potential because your beliefs, which is probably something that you may have picked up when you were growing up, most of the beliefs that we believe in terms of work, success, relationships, parenting, typically were instilled, kind of imprinted on us growing up with our parents, with our fellow family members, and sometimes with our actual friends. And so that's why they're so powerful, is because a lot of times we basically may be going through life believing something about what it is. Like we're going to get into some really specific examples, but we may have a belief that in the end, when you really start to break down that belief, it's hindering your ability to realize what it is that you want in your career or again, in your personal life. This really applies to your entire life, but I mean, most of the examples that I'll be sharing with you are again, focused on the professional world. And so the other piece here that I wanna make clear is that in essence, each of us is really viewing certain events through a unique set of filters. You can think of your beliefs as filters as well, or lenses that again are uniquely yours because it's based on your cumulative life experiences. And our formula for success then can either propel us to perform at our maximum and current potential, or in many ways, it keeps us in our place. And that's why I'm saying it's the bedrock. They're so powerful. And yet a lot of times, and I'm including myself, I've gone through, and I'm going to share a deeply personal belief that I held that had major implications on my life. And so again, this is a lifelong journey. I'm just giving you the framework. And so now we're going to dive deeper into how our beliefs really are the bedrock for our success because they create the thoughts and the feelings that will ultimately result in us either moving forward or making us stay in our place. So the first typical type of belief, which is a type of a block that each of us has, and this is basic, this is again, no one does not have limiting beliefs. We all have limiting beliefs in our lives. It's just that we may not call them that. And so now you're armed with more information. But a limiting belief is really a generalization or a stereotype or an idea that we learned and accepted about ourselves and about the world that limits us in some way. And right now, these might be some common ones that people may be familiar with, but what I want to do is make this really crystal clear by sharing a deeply personal story about myself and a belief that I actually was carrying for a long time that didn't allow me to step into my potential. So when I met my husband in San Francisco, we decided, obviously, I was with him for 4 years and he received a transfer based on his work. And with that transfer came me, moving my life, picking up the life that I had established. And after we had moved, he was, as most of you may know, he's a diplomat. So we're moving every 3 to 4 years. But it was during that time when we were together that I started to recognize and tell myself that I really couldn't have a career. I couldn't have my own career because we were picking up and moving because of his career. And so this is an example of how strong these beliefs can be. And this is just one example. And I would ask that you start, if you can, think about perhaps some beliefs that are similar to what I'm sharing that you may not have considered in the past, but that may be presenting a barrier to you getting what it is that you want. So just to continue the story with Jonathan, I literally was telling myself that I couldn't have my own career. And how that ended up showing up in terms of my thoughts and emotions was that I actually started to build huge resentment and anger and frustration towards him based on my situation. And that was, in a way, it was misplaced, but that was the outcome, is that it was having an impact on our relationship. I wasn't communicating. I was showing up again angry, not a healthy place to obviously have a relationship. And so luckily over time, I was able, I think I met a coach myself. We sat down, we had a conversation. And one of the first questions after he heard me talk about my life and how I was talking about it from a job standpoint and not like having my own career, he just stopped me dead in my tracks and asked me, why is it that you believe that you can't have your own career? Like, tell me where that's coming from. It literally, the floodgates opened and I was like, oh, what the hell? It was just that one question in itself was so powerful that I was able to understand, why did I believe it? And if you look at it, it wasn't even true. The idea of this belief wasn't true, but it's what I was telling myself. And so in the end, I spent 3 or 4 years just looking at jobs and taking on some great jobs and roles that help pay the bills. But in a way, I was limiting my own potential. And that's where these become so powerful, is that we really do sometimes take our beliefs and limiting beliefs for granted. So I'd love if you'd like, if anyone wants to share maybe a limiting belief that they want to put out there that perhaps they may be grappling with even today in the chat, that would be awesome. But the ones that you're seeing here are very common. A lot of people believe that showing emotions is a sign of weakness, right? And if you believe that, imagine how you're showing up in your relationship by not probably communicating and expressing yourself in a way that is resulting in a healthier overall relationship, because you are holding back your emotions. And so that's where this relationship is between what people believe, how they think, and what they feel, and then ultimately what they act. And so quickly, here's a great solution that if you do have limiting beliefs, here are 2 questions that you can use that will help you begin to unwind or unravel how they're either helping you or is there really any truth behind them, is to ask yourself, where did you learn that? And so if you take one of the ones from the previous page, or even the one I had, where did I learn that I couldn't have my own career? That was the actual belief that I was creating inside myself. That was my own consciousness that created this story. But if I really looked at it and said, what evidence do I have to support that belief is true? There was no evidence. It was just me creating this story, this belief that I had. And again, it had ramifications in terms of my overall career and my relationship with my spouse. So this is where these inner workings become so powerful. Another way that we do this every single day of our life is through interpretations. These are just as powerful and in a way can limit us in so many ways. But basically, interpretations are a story, an opinion, or a judgment that we create about an event, situation, person, or experience, and we believe it to be true. So how many of you, and this is, I have this telephone game, right, as the symbol or the image on the screen that you're seeing. I just actually was dealing with a client recently who was telling me that because her boss hadn't replied to an email that she had sent that had a lot of important information, but because her boss had not responded within 24 hours, she was starting to create this whole story about whether or not she felt that she was valued by him, that he actually felt that her work was obviously subpar or like wasn't up to standard. And so interpretations, we are making, and we have interpretations all day long. Some people, I have spent hours sometimes when someone hasn't replied to maybe an email or a proposal that I submitted, and it's been a week and someone hasn't gotten back to me, you can let your mind go to a place where you have created, I mean, it's like a movie that you've created in your head about what was happening or what you think was happening. But when you really get down to what is actually happening or what actually does happen, 9 times out of 10, it's something that you're just, it's reinforcing those beliefs in you and those thoughts and feelings that, again, is typically making you go to a place where you are doubting yourself. You may be doubting yourself, and maybe creating worry, and maybe creating stress. And so interpretations are powerful. And again, this is why I'm sharing this with you, is because a lot of times we just go through life without ever stopping to question these things that are taking place, and we attach so much meaning to them, and that has an influence on who we are and how we end up showing up. So the way that you can stop an interpretation dead in its tracks is asking these 2 quick questions. What else might be going on? There might be a million reasons why, in the case, the example that I gave you, that my client's boss hadn't replied. There could be a million other reasons why he didn't reply within 24 hours. And then the other piece is what might be some other possible interpretations regarding whatever the situation is or the context of what you found yourself in. Because if we leave it to ourselves, a lot of times we actually are the ones that end up paying the price for something that has really no validity or truth. But we do it, and it's like a default state that we go through. So the next and last powerful kind of framework here is what we call assumptions. And again, I do this all the time. It's absolutely human nature to create assumptions. But basically, assumptions are a belief that something that happened in the past that you've done will result in the same outcome in the present. And this one, I think, is so common in relationships. I have heard a lot of friends, a lot of my friends, both gay and non-gay, where when they talk a relationship that they may have been in, they immediately say like, oh, because my previous relationship didn't work out, it's probably, you know, my current one isn't going to probably work out as well. And just think about that. Like, how powerful is it if that's what you're telling yourself in terms of meeting a potential individual to share your life with, or, you know, to build a future with? Is that if you're coming from this place in your mind, and that's a belief that you have, everything starts to manifest itself from that place and that belief that you have, and what the inner story that you have created for yourself. You know, another thing that you hear, I guess, sometimes in business might be, right, we can never launch this product during the holiday season because it's a bad idea. We already tried this last holiday season and it didn't work. Well, if you really looked into the reasons why perhaps it Okay.
You're back, Kevin. We can hear you now.
Oh, wow. So I must have had, I think, an outage with my Wi-Fi, you guys. Apologies.
No worries. You're back. We can hear you loud and clear.
All right. So hold on. I don't want to tell really become these 3 inner blocks, what I've shared with you in our beliefs, are the foundation for us. It's saying my internet. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay,
You're
sorry
stable.
about this. All right. So now we're going to talk about this idea of energy, because what I've just shared with you, right, results in us as being energetic beings. We show up and we vibrate energy, and as human beings, we all have energy. And so how do we know this? Because our good friend and our historical scientist who contributed so much to our world today is that basically prove that everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. And you may have heard a phrase as well that energy attracts like energy. And we're going to get into more of that, but really what that means is that as human beings, we also are vibrating energy, and every single day and every single context and situation throughout our lives. And with that, we are actually showing up a certain way. And this, we're going to get into more of how this ties back to the beliefs and that model that I showed you. But overall, when you think about energy, the connection between that and our beliefs is that, again, it influences our thoughts and feelings, and ultimately the actions that we are showing up as, how we actually show up, which is energy. And so depending on how each of us individually interprets any specific event, situation, our relationships, it's based on, again, our unique belief system. That belief system that I shared earlier, those beliefs actually inform sometimes how we are showing up a certain way energetically with those around us, and whether it be, again, our colleagues, our boss, senior leaders, our spouse, our children, and the list goes on. And so what you're seeing here are 7 different levels of energy and consciousness that every single one of us but you may experience based on a given context or situation at any moment in your life, right? How many, I can relate, if you look at level 2, let's just start with level 2. A level 2 energy, right, is someone whose core thought as an individual is conflict, and their core emotion is anger. And there are multiple emotions within each of these, but these are just the core thought, emotion, and an action associated with each level of energy. I've been that angry, I would say driver on my car in Miami traffic sometimes. And so the point here is that it is absolutely normal to be experiencing all these different 7 levels of consciousness throughout our day, given, again, the context or situation that we face. And again, none of these are considered like better or worse, but the power here is that as we increase our overall self-awareness as a leader and as individuals, we can actually begin to consciously choose how we show up in terms of our energetic profile. And so, for example, if I'm an individual who I'm always operating, and a lot of mothers out there might be able to identify with this, and even men, but level 4 energy is an individual who is always showing up for others. They are in service to others. So their primary goal is serving the people around them, when their core thought is concern and their core emotion is compassion. And their frame of reference is that if you win, I love you. And I'm not going to go through every single individual level here, but this is one of the most fascinating concepts that, again, as you begin to understand this and you see the 7 different levels of energy, I hope that you can identify with your own individual selves when perhaps sometimes you are showing up as perhaps a victim in your life, or you might be showing up as a level 5, which is someone who really sees opportunities, and it's a win for everyone. And so this, I think, is fascinating. And again, the idea here is, as you are building self-awareness and as you go deeper and dig deeper behind those belief systems that you have, you are able to consciously choose how to show up at those higher energy levels. The first 2 that I've highlighted here are considered the lowest 2 energy levels, and they are really draining. So if you are, and it makes sense, if you've experienced a lot of anger and defiance in your life, and you're constantly stressed out, you have self-doubt, worry, anxiety, guilt, those types of energies are draining. And the other piece here, right, is if that's what you are showing up as externally with other people, there are repercussions. So if you are a person who is probably, you know, a victim of your own life and don't want to take responsibility or accountability for yourself, it's what other people are going to experience you as. And so that's the power here, is that understanding this framework allows me to become more in touch with how it is I want to present myself and how it is I want to show up to a boardroom meeting, to a date that I have, you know, with a potential someone new in my life, right? Like a potential person. So this applies to all areas of our life, but within this framework too is leadership. And leadership, there's different categories that can be assigned at these different 7 levels of energy about how leaders show up who are exhibiting these 7 different levels of energy. And that, I'm not going to go through that, but if you're interested in learning more about energy and energy leadership, by all means, we can continue the conversation. So then that brings us to what I just said, is this whole concept of energy leadership, which is really a process that develops a personally effective style of leadership that positively influences and changes, not only for yourself, but also for those with whom you work and live. It basically takes the guesswork out of anyone going in default mode throughout their lives and always questioning or scratching their head wondering, why do things always play out like this? Or why is it that I can't seem to get that promotion that I want? Or there's so many different ways that this can be sliced and diced, but the beautiful aspect of this whole framework is that it actually starts putting you in the driver's seat. It starts putting you in the driver's seat of your own life and your potential, because you're building, increasing your own self-awareness, which becomes very powerful tools, as everyone knows, in a lot of major, you know, if you think about big leaders historically, like Martin Luther King or Tim Cook from Apple, these are individuals who I would like to think probably have spent a lot of time going inward to understand who they are, so that, you know what, they are showing up a certain way to the world, and we're able to basically have transformed industries, whether it's transformed society or technology, because they were able to tap into these higher levels of energy that allow them to do that. So now I get to take a breather. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. And again, I'll take some questions, I think, afterwards. I'm not sure if we have any right now, but now we're gonna take the time so that you can use this, the rest of the remaining time that we have together. You're gonna start tapping into your potential as a leader. And so again, there's no judgment here. This is gonna be an amazing exercise, and just please be open to exploring within yourself different areas of leadership. And so that's what you're seeing. Chris, I don't know, Christian, can you share that file that I sent you?
Hi, Kevin. I don't think it will allow us to actually share the file with the participants, but it's looking nice, and it's looking very clear on screen, so we can all see it.
Oh, perfect. All right, so then I have a file, and maybe I'll send it to Clementina afterwards, because I'd love to provide a PDF to each one of you afterwards so that you can continue this exploration on your own. But we're gonna take some time to look at your personal leadership and what leadership means to you in terms of your levels of satisfaction right now in 8 different categories that make up leadership. And so the idea here is, on each of these pie pieces that you're seeing, there are 8 in total. The idea is to rate your personal level of satisfaction in each of these areas. And so 1 meaning that you are completely unsatisfied, and 10 being that you are completely satisfied in that specific area. So I'll just take about 2 minutes. I'll put my timer on my watch on. And let's take some time, so that if you want, just write on a piece of paper, hopefully if you have a piece of paper handy, what your numbers and how you rate yourself. And then we're gonna open it up for discussion, because I would love to get some great ideas and questions and stuff going after this. If you have any questions, also please just put them in the chat. I think I need some music or something. Christian. Okay, I know that there are 18 other participants on this call, and so I expect to see 18 yeses. Don't be shy. I know some people might be more timid or whatever, and that's perfectly fine. This is really, again, about you hopefully spending some time looking at yourself in a way that is actually going to benefit you. So again, Christian, I got a yes from you. How about any of the other 16 or 17 participants? If you need more time, just let us know. But if you're finished, please just put a yes in the chat. Ándale, Horacio. Estela, qué bueno. Okay, I've got. All right, so we have Elizabeth, Estela, Horacio. Perla, thank you for chiming in there and saying that you're done. All right, so we're going to continue, I guess, to keep moving forward and just in the case of time here. But if you don't, thank you for those who obviously put a yes, and thank you to those who, if you didn't put a yes, that's okay. Continue thinking through for yourself, again, what those levels of satisfaction that you may have in these areas, because I'm gonna move forward into our next slide to create hopefully some engagement and just ask some questions. So if anyone would like to step forward, you don't have to, but I would really appreciate anyone. If you step forward, you are going to win a $500 gift certificate to Amazon. Actually, that's not the case. But if anyone wants to come forward, please share, were there any surprises for you when you were actually doing this exercise? Or maybe what came up for you as you were doing this exercise? Anybody?
Kevin, for me, the area around communication and having effective communication was a big one, because I think communication can encompass so many different variables, whether it's communicating with our managers, our bosses, our clients, our stakeholders, our team members. There's just so many people in that communication puzzle. When you start to break it down, you start to realize that there's some gaps and there's some room for improvement.
And tell me a little bit more. I mean, we won't go into all the nuts and bolts, Christian. Thank you so much for sharing. But tell me a little bit more about, what that what is that gap? What is it? Where do you think that gap is coming from, perhaps?
I think that maybe this is also COVID related to the fact that we're working, so many of us, in a virtual world and virtual office setting. But we're so focused on our end user, our clients. We're so focused on our team and our immediate manager, but we actually forget the other colleagues, in legal and compliance and procurement and communications and PR. And actually, it's very easy to get quite tunnel visioned and actually leaving a lot of those key stakeholders out of that communication loop. And so I think, again, it might be a little bit of a working remotely and not being in a physical space with these people. But I think there's room for improvement in just remembering, slowing down, that we have, all of these wonderful associates and colleagues that are a resource and have been helpful, and keeping them involved and up to speed and up to date on our projects. I think it's something that sometimes when we're running at 1,000,000 miles an hour, we forget.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Christian, and thank you so much for sharing. Would anyone else, I'm seeing some, thanks for putting it in the chat. I mean, I'm seeing that someone put frustration because it's hard to find balance. That might be Clementina. And when you said, yes, with home office, it makes you, absolutely. So what you're saying, Clementina, is it's sometimes hard, right, to establish those boundaries between work and your personal life because of COVID. It's sometimes work just kind of bleeds throughout the day, right? And you can just keep going until 7 or 8 at night because you're not in an office setting, you're at home. So the environment, even the environment is influencing that particular piece of it, I think, as well, because in home office, you're not having to leave an office, actually shut the door, get in your car and drive to your home, you're already there. So I think that's a great point as well, that it's hard to find balance. How many other people can identify perhaps with this idea of finding balance between work and their personal life because they're working from home? Anyone? Elizabeth, thank you. So Elizabeth, definitely you can identify with that. Is there anyone else that just wants to share quickly, what came up for you, or how did you feel when you were going through the exercise itself in terms of your overall professional life and in terms of the wheel? Okay. All right, we're going to move on to the next slide, which now we're going to take this one step further, which is on those slides, right, of the 8 pieces or categories that you were able to rate yourself in terms of your level of satisfaction. Which category or categories do you want to perhaps improve? So when you look at them, maybe what you could do right now is think about how would you prioritize that list based on your lowest levels of satisfaction. And then ultimately start thinking about, and again, if you'd like to share, it would be great. You don't have to share. What needs, these are questions that you can obviously ask yourself afterwards and continue doing this exercise for yourself. But what do you feel needs to change in order to improve your satisfaction in that specific category? And then the last question, again, that you can take some time as well, really reflecting on and coming up with, is what help and support might you need from others to make the necessary changes and increase your satisfaction? Thank you, Jonathan Chiat, for saying better communication. I'd love to hear more from you in terms of what do you mean when you say better communication? And that would be, again, how we could look deeper into this is what is it? What do you feel? My question to you would be, what do you believe that you need to change or improve in order to increase your better communication? And start to define that. Start to really detail out and write out, what does that actually start to look like when you say better communication? Thanks, Christian, for also posting that in terms of your focus on your emotional well-being. That's huge. And so many of us have had some, I think, really ups and downs during this whole COVID-19 experience, where there's days where emotionally you may feel that you're so drained. And then there may be days where, well, Christian, I know that this past month you were away, and I don't think you were feeling, I think you were feeling energized. I got the impression based on the pictures that I was seeing. Christian recently got married for everyone on the phone. And so I think you were on cloud 9, I would say. So no, that's a great point. So I would ask each of you, I mean, if you didn't step forward, please consider writing these questions down for yourself and continue to build on the actual exercise that was shared earlier, because this becomes just one specific area in terms of leadership that you can start thinking about how you can maximize your individual potential, as well as what your success formula looks like in terms of increasing your levels of satisfaction in areas that you maybe don't feel 100% satisfied. And so the last piece, and we are not going to, again, we'll probably move through this one really quickly, is that none of this can really happen, right? Great success really starts with a small step. And when I say success, all of us have an idea of how we define success for ourselves, and that's what this means. And so if you did the exercise and you're following it through and you've identified a category that really is resonating with you, that you feel, God, if I were able to make a difference in this one area, it would really help propel you forward. The next piece is identify one action that you think that you could take to improve your level of satisfaction in that category. And again, I know there was several people that were sharing. Write these down if you'd like. Again, Clementina, maybe what I will try to do is send you a PDF with all of this information so that people can continue to explore this outside of this setting. And one other thing to consider too is sometimes when we think about action, and action is really the key component here, because without taking action, it's hard for us to maximize our potential. It's great to maybe have a new thought or a belief that we've created that will help propel us. But I think the other piece is action is really the component where, again, the rubber meets the road, and it's critical. So if there's just one small thing that you could do, it doesn't have to be huge, that would move you towards having greater satisfaction in a particular area, that's okay. It doesn't have to be a huge leap forward. It could be one small step towards what it is that you want. And so that is basically we are at the end. We've come to the end, and I'd love to leave you with this quote from, I think, a very well-known individual. Eckhart Tolle is very well-known globally, and this kind of sums up a lot of what we've been talking about, which is, rather than being your thoughts and emotions, be the awareness behind them. And again, the key word here is awareness. It's so key. I'm telling you that as leaders, as you continue to move up and become in higher overall leadership roles where you have greater responsibility, this particular piece of the puzzle, which is really emotional intelligence as well, is critical to your success. It becomes what actually would separate you from other individuals, because at this level, it's really not about skills. It's more about having a growth mindset and having that emotional intelligence that is going to hopefully lead, inspire, and motivate people, because you are operating at higher overall energy levels. And so I'd love to take any, I think we've got 10 minutes left, but any questions, if there are questions about what you saw.
Kevin, I've got a question, and I think
Sure.
we could all potentially identify to this. So we all have the occasional colleague or client or team member that's a bit of a mood hoover, a little bit of a energy zapper. What tips would you have to manage our own energy and also manage the expectations of others? But how do we work effectively with individuals that we just find so heavy when it comes to energy?
Okay, this is a really good question. That's a great question, Christian. Those are the toughest individuals to be around, first and foremost. And I think everyone is probably shaking their head if you're sitting in front of your computer. But if you're around individuals who are those, I don't want to say they're pessimists, but they are living in those lower level energies of they're a victim, or everything that's a problem is a problem external to them, but they love to just complain and draw people into that negative energy that they're putting out there in the world. Unfortunately, Christian, the only way that this is the main way that you can sort of, it's not about protecting yourself, it's about you honoring you, right? Because you're not that type of a person. And I'm not that type of person. I don't want to be around those types of individuals. And if I am for any given time, like if it's for an hour, I feel drained. And the reason being because it is a very low level energy. It's draining to be around someone like that. They literally will take it out of you. They will like drain your energy. Those individuals, I think it's important that you establish your own boundaries for yourself in choosing how and when you want to engage with them. And I say that because in most situations, if it's work related, it's work, right? It's let's get the work done, and they can, but they will bring probably some of that into it. They may be complaining while it's going on. Unfortunately, that's why this idea of self-awareness is critical. Is it's hard to really help those individuals until they help themselves, until they're able to understand what is behind their I'm sure that there are beliefs that they're holding on to that are helping, that are only perpetuating them staying in the state of victimhood. Make sense? It's not something that, another thing I'll put out there, this is also for any parent out there, I've learned this. If you have children, right, and you're trying to get them to not do something, if they keep doing something that you're like, God, could you please just stop doing that? Telling them not to do it is not the most effective way to get them to change their behavior. Actually, I know it runs counterintuitive, because just by saying, please stop doing that, you would expect someone to maybe listen or buy in. But in all situations, until you help them understand and kind of do some reflective inquiry of why is it that you're doing what you do, to help them see for themselves why they shouldn't be doing it, that's when actually behavior can start to change. And it does sound counterintuitive, but I've actually talked to other parents. I have clients and I have other great coaching friends who are parents themselves. And it's something that's so hard to learn, but just telling someone not to do something typically won't stop them from doing it. You have to create some awareness of what you're doing and why you're doing it, and kind of what's going on behind, like why the person is doing it behind the scenes, to help them build the awareness of, okay, I understand why I shouldn't do this. They have to understand it for themselves. And so, but I would, Christian, a question I would have for you is, I bet you in your world, do you find yourself surrounded by people who have a very similar energy level as yourself? They are people who might be more of a level 4. They're in service to others. They have compassion. And so if you're one of those individuals and you kind of look around and you see that, wow, a lot of the people that I'm around are either angry or constantly in one of those lower levels of energy, you may start to notice it more now that you're like, wow, like someone may be there, but that doesn't mean that they have to stay there. That's the thing. They have a choice to start to look at themselves and go inward to build the self-awareness, so that they don't need to constantly stay in those lower levels of energy. We have looks like a couple more. What other ways could we use to change our energetic state in the moment? Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question, Estela. One of the ways that you can do this is actually called, I did it as a gymnast, but it's very sports oriented. It's called visualization. And a lot of times what you can do is start to visualize what kind of state you would want to show up as or be as in any given situation. And I'll give you a specific example because I've done this. So when I gave a presentation about 3 or 4 weeks ago, in preparation for my presentation, apart from preparing the deck and everything, I really started to visualize how I saw myself in that situation showing up as a level 5 individual. And a level 5 is all about making a win-win for everyone. It's a win not only for me, but the outcome that you're hoping for is that it's a win for everyone involved. If you start to visualize and build that idea up in your head in terms of what that looks like going through your presentation, typically what ends up happening is you will actually manifest that outcome. That's how powerful our beliefs are. And I know that some of you may be like, wait, do beliefs really our beliefs do manifest themselves in some way, shape, or form, because what we believe and what we think is the world that we create for ourselves. That's the basic recipe of the worlds that we live in, is that we have so much more power than we give ourselves credit for. And I say that across the board, including myself. We really do have much more, we are wiser and smarter than actually we appear to be in most situations. So hopefully, Estela, that may have helped. And then Horacio, under a multicultural work environment and working remotely, how can you increase the level of your team's performance? Okay, this is a great question. And Horacio, that one of the ways that you can do that is, and I'm bringing this in because this is how I would go about doing based on my coaching and my experience, is the energy leadership, that those 7 levels that I shared with you. There is an assessment similar to a Myers-Briggs, which is a personality test. It's called the Energy Leadership Index Assessment, and I can share that with you afterwards. But what this does is it actually measures every individual. So if you wanted to understand how your team is resonating in terms of their overall energy and their individual energy that makes up your team, I would have them take this attitudinal assessment to get a baseline of where your team is and each of the individual members in terms of how they are showing up energetically. It literally measures the percent of time that individuals are showing up in each of those 7 different energy levels. It's really, really powerful because you start to see how you show up. And then you have a framework to build from. Then what I would do, Horacio, is after having those results, I would do a debrief with those individuals along with the leader of that team to look at where they're at right now and where it is that the team wants to go, and start to establish those objectives and goals for the team and almost do what's called a gap analysis. So you're able to establish a baseline, look at where it is the team wants to go in terms of how they would define improving their overall performance and synergy. We would define what that looked like, and then you would start to fill in those gaps in terms of what are the needs that need to be addressed in order to move towards that higher overall level of synergy and overall performance. I know that was a bit more scientific, but it is. So if you're interested in learning more, please reach out to me and I can share more about this assessment. It's actually, if you just do a quick search under Forbes and do Energy Leadership Index, there is an article that was posted not even 2 years ago that it's one of the top 5 tests that all executives should take, because it's not a personality test, it's an attitudinal test. That's it. Oh. So if you guys are interested in either understanding more about what I said, or seriously, if you even want some of the components about the beliefs and the ways that you can sort of combat those different belief systems, those limiting beliefs, by all means, you can reach out to me. Either visit my website, send me an email, and I'd love for you guys, of course, to follow me on social media. I'm both in Facebook and Instagram as well, so you can look for me there. But I really, really appreciate all of you being here and for everyone participating that step forward. So I hope you really enjoy this. And also, I'm all about learning and growth. So please, if you want to put in the chat anything that your comments, maybe some quick feedback about what you loved about it, what maybe you would have wanted to see more of, less of, please share that with me, because it's the only way that I can continue to improve and hopefully bring this to more people.
Thank you, Kevin. On behalf of the US-Mexico Chamber of Commerce, on behalf of course, Clementina that put today's event together, thank you, Clementina. Absolute pleasure, wonderful presentation. I think we all learned so much and a great space for us to reflect on our own leadership styles. And I just encourage all of you to reach out to Kevin, book in an exploratory session and just go a little bit deeper. With that, have a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to bringing you more content through our Together We Advance network. Thank you and have a great weekend.
Thank you.